Thank you very much for joining us for this, our first morning coffee. I'm Maryellen Burns.
And I'm Kelsey Marr.
We've been affiliated with ACC for quite a while now. I've done what I call a kitchen chaos program and a lot of history. And Kelsey, what have you done here?
I've done several cooking demos through ACC, and I'm here with you today.
Great. So I want to thank everybody. We have a full audience. And we have all of you at home. I wanted to give you, before we go over to Kelsey, just a little bit of a background on morning coffee. And we have one of the first morning coffee people will be joining us later, Joy G. Morning coffee actually started as a group that met of artists and writers that would get together once a week, and we would have coffee either in someone's home, coffee house, or in an art place. We were supposed to just kind of share what we had done, talk about the gossip of the day, and then we would actually create. We want this to be a little bit more conversational. You're going to have an opportunity to do some art, those of you in the audience, and we'll give you plenty of time at home to do that as well. We're going to be doing these every month, first Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. And again, hope that you will continue to join us. And now I wanted to just kind of throw it over and ask Kelsey. Kelsey's going to do this first part. Can we have the next slide, please? So I wanted to just say, I said guest. This isn't guest, this is friends. Most of you that are in the audience are friends as well. And so today we're going to have Kelsey Marr. Ellen Robinson's going to come up. Joy G is going to help do the art project, and I have a wonderful friend, Tiffany Sandage, that's going to be helping the studio audience. And this is the agenda. We're going to, let's talk coffee, Coffee Guggenheim, coffee stories, and we're going to ask those of you in the audience, if you have a story, to get up and actually share one, and then we're going to have an opportunity to do coffee art. This is one of my favorite things. I collect cartoons. I worked at Sac State, and the doorway had all of these wonderful cartoons. A lot of them had to do with coffee. Do we have a flavor called a cup of coffee? I thought that that one was funny anyway. And also, before introducing Kelsey, She does have to leave. She has another appointment at 10:30. So I'm going to intersperse a little bit of the history of coffee, but I wanted to bring a coffee memory first. And there's two things. Virginia Uchida is in the audience. We knew each other when we used to work. I think she actually helped run a place called Alice's Restaurant at Sac State. It was a wonderful coffee house. It was in an old Quonset hut. And we would have fantastic music on the weekends. The coffee was an old coffee pot that just drip, drip, drip for 10 cents. We would put some things I can't repeat sometimes on the wall for poetry. But the other quick story I wanted to tell is how I got introduced for coffee. And the first coffee that I remember was actually at Jim Denio's auction. We would go to a place called Marguerite's Coffee, 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was so cold that my father would let me have coffee. And that's when he first told me the story of chicory and coffee. He ran away from home. You guys are going to hear a lot of my dad's stories over the course of these months. He ran away from home when he was 7 and lived on the road in the South from 7 to 9. And the only way he survived were black sharecroppers. And he always made sure he got fed. He was Jewish, he had to hide it. He would look for hobo symbols around. But he knew that if he could add, all they could eat or drink was chicory. But if he could bring some coffee with him, then he would make sure that he could always contribute to the meal. So that's my story, and now I'm going to throw it over to Kelsey.
I think my first coffee experience was probably I was a junior in high school, and in Kelsey fashion, I waited last minute to do a very big project. Mainly the science fair project that you're supposed to spend the whole year doing. I decided I could do it in one night. And so frantically painting my poster, I was falling asleep. And my father said, here's this thing that will help you stay up. And that was a black cup of coffee. And ever since, I usually just drink black coffee.
Great, thank you. And now Kelsey's going to share with us kind of how to make the perfect brew.
Yeah, so I'm a local interactive culinary educator. I do classes in private homes as well as excursions around NorCal, and I've worked in the coffee industry both as a salesperson and as a barista for several years. I've had the great fortune of traveling around the United States, Canada, and South America tasting coffee, as well as I used to live in Central Asia and Europe, so I've tasted coffee there, but not necessarily for work, mostly for pleasure. So when Maryellen asked me to speak about what makes the perfect cup, one of the things that I wanted to ask back to you, Maryellen, was what do you put in your perfect or most favorite cookie? That'll be our analogy for today.
Oh my God. Well, I'm pretty predictable. Chocolate chip cookie.
Okay. Do you
But don't laugh. If you add just a hint of espresso in a chocolate chip cookie, the espresso powder, it really kicks up that cookie a lot.
Delicious. Yes.
Yeah. But what I like to drink with my coffee the most is biscotti. And we brought some for the studio audience today because it's the perfect dipping cookie.
I agree. I love biscotti.
Good.
And for your chocolate chip, do you like it soft and chewy or like crunchy so that you have to dip it in that cup of coffee or
I'm
milk?
a soft and chewy chocolate chipper.
Same here. Yeah. My favorite is usually a soft and chewy oatmeal cookie with some dried fruit. So, but just like our cookies, we can add different ingredients and we can prepare it in different ways to get the soft and chewy or the crunchy. The same as with your cup of coffee. We can talk about the ingredients, like what kind of roast you want, or we can get super nerdy and talk about the varietal, because that will also influence the flavors. Kind of like here locally, we have the Meyer lemon versus a standard lemon. I don't know.
A lemon?
A lemon. Or even if you go to like different parts of Italy, the lemons will be huge and have different components. They won't be as sour, they'll be more bitter. Same with different varieties of coffee. They'll have different flavor attributes. So here in our audience, just raise your hand. Who tends to like to put milk in their coffee in the morning? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then those who drink it, 6. And black? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, cool. So about half and half. Depending on your roast of coffee, it either leans more towards adding milk or less. So if you don't drink it with coffee, you probably want to go for a lighter roast. And if you do drink it with milk, if you don't drink it with milk, you want to do lighter. And if you do drink it with milk, you probably want to go for your darker French and Italian roasts. I see a lot of head nodding. Excellent. We have a very smart group here today. Today I brought with me just the coffee that I'm drinking at my house. It's Congolese Twende. It's roasted by a roaster in Greenville, South Carolina. I visited them a few months ago. And I really like them because they're a nonprofit that really focuses on building bridges within their community and having like a really diverse group of folks that work with them. And the roaster is a Bridge City. We have plenty of roasters here in town. Temple, Camellia, help me out.
Is Pachamama?
Pachamama, yep. They do a really good job if you're looking for alternative milk sources. They tend to only, and first and foremost, make their milk drinks with oat milk. So if you're wanting to do alternative milks and not get charged extra, they're a great place to go. So one of our first conversation pieces is ingredients. So if you know how you like to have your coffee in the end, that's a great place to start. Also, the next thing we want to consider is how to make it. And some questions I ask myself are like, what are my limitations? How much am I making? Usually it's just for me or one other person. How much time do I have? And do I have a heated water pot? Luckily today we have a gooseneck kettle. This is used usually for pour overs. If you have a normal kettle, just like one that you put on the stovetop, usually that's great for something like an AeroPress or a French press, because that's an immersion technique versus what we'll be doing today, which is a different type of process. So you may not have seen this. This is an AeroPress.
One of our audience members just ordered one, Virginia.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome. Yeah, I use this when I travel. This is the traveling case, so it all just folds up into this piece. And this is actually the cup. So it's really nice if you end up traveling and you like to have your own coffee. I normally at home just do a pour over. And so I'll show you the pour over technique today. By no means do you have to have all this set up. I think I've graduated my different pieces over the years, and so it's not something you have to immediately invest in to have a good cup of coffee. So for today, we can first talk, the first one, it's actually quite a big conversation in the coffee world, is water. I'm just going to keep it very basic today and just say I use 190 as my degrees. If you put it on your stovetop and it's boiling, just let it sit for a minute or two and it'll come down to 190. The quality of the water is the big conversation that we have in the coffee world. There are companies that only work in water, that provide water to your cafes to make sure that it has the best taste for your coffee. Filtered water is preferable, but I'm kind of lazy and I just use city water, so because that's what I have around. So that's what I'm using today, and that's like a quick overview. We have different kinds of grinders. Today I have electric grinder. There's also hand grinders that you can use. Depending on the type of process that you're making the coffee, depends on the type of grind. And so for today, if we had For our AeroPress, we're going to use a medium coarse grind if we were using this, so a bigger ground size. For our drip, or if you have a drip coffee at home that goes bloop, 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 that's a machine, you would use medium, and same with our pour over. I do have a Turkish cup or process here. That one is extra fine. And in between what we would use for our pour over and our Turkish is fine, and that is what you get at a coffee shop, but that's just espresso, usually. So, or does anyone have a mocha pot at home? Yeah, on the stovetop? Yeah.
How many coffee pots, audience? Just guess how many coffee pots, or how many just French presses do you think I own? Anyone want to take a guess?
I'm guessing. Maybe 8?
Higher.
3? Higher?
I have 15 just French presses,
Holy
pour
mackerel.
overs, you name it, I've got it. I was going to bring some of it in today, but
Nice. Well, with French press, you'll go extra coarse, but you probably
Thank
already
you,
know
I'm
that
probably
having
doing
as
it
many.
wrong. Okay.
Yes, you have. So we're gonna do. We're gonna weigh out our beans. The ratio that I use for the pour over is going to be 17 grams of water to 1 gram of coffee, and I'm going to use 25 grams of coffee.
can you tell us, those of us that don't use the metric system, how many ounces approximately? Or little spoons, they give you those little spoons.
Oh, the little spoons?
Yeah.
We can actually figure it out today. I have
Okay.
a spoon here that I use with my AeroPress. I feel like this is my culinary test. I'm like, oh God, I haven't studied. I do have a scale. I have one of the fancy scales. For the longest time, I just used a baking scale. This scale itself, I forget how much it was, maybe like $50 on Amazon. But essentially, it's charged by a USB. It gives me the weight of the coffee, and as well as a timer, which when it comes down to making the perfect cup of coffee, it's all about extraction. You don't want to under extract, which would make it salty, sour, acidic, or over extract, which would make it bitter, woody, really yucky. So this is one of those fancy scales. You don't need this. If you're using a baking scale that will catch the weight, just use the timer on your phone, and it's the same exact thing. If you want to do this ritual when you make your cup of coffee. I understand it's a whole lot. So I'm going to go ahead and just weigh out some coffee for us today.
I'm going to ask a question. You're using what's called a burr grinder.
Yes.
Do you want to explain while you're doing it why a burr grinder is better than my little $10 or $3 that I got at the thrift store grinder?
I'm assuming it's just because you can manage the size better. It's going to be more consistency on size. Do you have an answer as well? Or no?
So this is why I wanted to invite Kelsey to join us. I'm one of those, depending on if I want to really savor and have that perfect cup, especially that first cup in the morning, then I might do kind of what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just grab and pour.
That's kind of
And
how
I
I
do
live my
have
life.
both the burr. I actually prefer the burr grinder, and I agree, to my regular one. That regular one I do more spices in.
I see it as more
And
of a
that's
spice
because
grinder.
you're
yeah.
right, you can control the grind a lot better than you can.
Because
the little
essentially it's
small
going
one.
between two burrs.
And they're
every
not that
piece.
expensive
Yeah,
to be
like
able to purchase.
I have a hand grinder that I think I purchased for $12. I use it when I travel. I'll put a couple of whole beans in a Ziploc bag. I'll take this and I'll take my hand grinder, and that's kind of my setup. Just heads up, if you travel, do not get your beans ground because it gets a little bit harder to pass through borders with ground beans, depending on which borders you're going through. So this one, again, just like what Maryellen was saying, you can buy this new. It is about...
I am so sorry, I turned that off, I
No
thought.
worries. It is about $200. I just went on Facebook Marketplace and bought it for like $100. So you can always check like your Facebook Marketplace, other apps that your neighbors are selling things on, as well as like eBay. So I'm gonna go ahead and grind it, so it might be a loud noise for a second.
You might not have noticed, but if you train your ears, I might say that I have been a professional caterer and cook. We have somebody else in the audience as well. I can tell by the sound where we are in the grind, and after a while, train your ear to that. It's not that hard to do.
Yeah, so now that we've got it ground, one of the things if I'm busy at home, like trying to multitask, I would have already wet the paper filter. This just gets the papery, woody taste not in our coffee. It kind of cooks it out. Also, you have this really hot water, which you can then put in your cup, and it heats up your cup so that there isn't a reduction in heat once you put your coffee in the cup. Normally, I would just throw this out, which probably will. Excellent. And so to answer your question, let's see how many spoonfuls 25 grams is. Nope. So it looks like one, about two.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, two if it's ground. And so here I'm just going to tare the scale again so that we're at 0, 0. And so when we do our pour over, it's at 0, 0. We're going to try to aim for 425 grams of water, milliliters. Yeah, of water. And we're first going to do, since we did 25 grams of coffee, we're going to double that and do 50 milliliters of water within the first hopefully 10 seconds, and we're gonna let it sit for 30 seconds. This is like the initial cooking of your beans again, and this is degassing them, getting out the carbon dioxide from the coffee bean. And you might be like, whoa, carbon dioxide, why are we even talking about this? Carbon dioxide doesn't like water. So if we're trying to extract and like get the flavor from the ground beans, we need it to fill up with water, and if there's carbon dioxide in it, it won't fill up with water. So that first 30 seconds is called a bloom. Especially with light coffee, you'll see a big bloom. It'll just like, it won't overtopple this, of course, but it'll be pretty big on the inside. And then from there, within 3 to 4 minutes, so in total, so 2.5 to 3.5 minutes, we want to get to 425. And so that's kind of what we're looking for. It should take 4 to 5 minutes overall to make your cup of coffee. So everything's torn. I'm going to set my timer. So this is where you would set the timer on your phone. I'm just kind of watching this, making sure that all the grounds are wet. It takes a lot of practice. I hit 64 grams. Womp womp. Not 60 or not 50. But I know it's close enough. I am seeing that the grinds are kind of poofing up with that initial water. I do see gas coming out. Smells good so far. And we're at 30 seconds. So now I'm just going to go around in a circle. I'm at 119, so we have about 300 more to go. I'm at 45 seconds. And so your baristas have really got this down. When I was a barista having to do this to train, it took a lot of practice. But luckily for everyone, you can practice at home. Become really good at it. So we're at 1 minute and 167 grams. I'm gonna let the water kind of drain through so that we're still on our time count of 4 minutes. And again, this is all about extraction. So if we do it too quickly, if I just poured in all the water, it would taste salty, sour, very acidic, because this is a light roast, and so light roasts are already pretty acidic and fruity. If I under extract or over extract it, so where I might take too much time, like 8 minutes, let's say I get a phone call, I get distracted, the beans are just sitting there, it is going to have more of a woody taste and bitter taste to it. So we're at 222, so how about halfway there? And we're at 150, so once we hit the 2-minute mark, I'll add more. If I was a very good barista, I'd just be able to slowly pour for 4 minutes around and around and around, and that's really the craft that your barista brings when they do this. There's even machines now you'll see at Verve in Santa Cruz, and locally here Temple K has the Seraphin, where it's a machine that does this consistently. So you're getting that consistent coverage. So
I have a quick question for you. We have some older people in the audience. We have some younger people, including you and others. Do you think that this concentration on the taste and the perfect cup is something that's more your generation? Because in our generation, am I right? You just went to the coffee shop and you took whatever schlong that they gave you. Do you see this generational, or do you think?
Potentially.
Really?
I also see it as regional too.
Okay.
Because on the West Coast we have this process, or we have this trend of flavor within the coffee.
Right.
If you go back to the South or the Southeast Coast, they're still adding a lot of flavor, like by syrups to their coffee.
I find I don't know how many street corners we have now that have coffee shops. I think 10 years ago you might count 3, but now almost every street has coffee shops. I mean, from Pete's to Starbucks and such.
We're not sure if you could hear, but what Joy was making a comment that basically in the old days we had coffee shops. Now we have places competing against each other oftentimes right across the street. And I'm in Midtown. I think I can walk in 10 minutes to over 15 coffee places.
I'm also based in Midtown, and that is one of the reasons why I do live in Midtown, is because there are so many coffee shops. I don't know if it's necessarily the same function. I still think it is third spaces. I think there were more communities back in the day built around the coffee shops. I think now it's seen as like an affordable luxury to get a cup of coffee, especially when we start talking flavor notes.
Right.
It almost resembles like the wine or other specialty food industries like olive oil, where you are looking for certain flavor notes. In today's coffee, we'll be tasting red wine.
Wonderful.
Yep. And so this might be a little over extracted looking at the numbers. We're at 425, so a little bit over on water. And we should be at 530 by the time this goes through. So not necessarily the perfect cup, but I think it's good enough.
Do you have a favorite place? I mean, if you can walk to so many, is there one that you think does a better pour over versus a better brew?
I feel like that's a loaded question, Maryellen.
She works in the coffee industry. I didn't ask that question. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's fine. I think for me, since I am so close to so many shops, it's really about ambiance for me. So I love the Mill because they have waffles, homemade waffles when you come in. They have an amazing granola as well with yogurt and jam. I love Camellia. They're a local roaster. They just added their roastery or their roaster machine inside their new building on our street. They have a dope egg sandwich that's worth eating. And then in the summer they do horchata cold brew. So it's like I think rice milk that's been cinnamony and with shots of I add shots of espresso to the cold brew, but it's a cold brew just straight. So that's nice if you like milk added to yours. And then I would say you probably find me at also Temple K because I enjoy their
pennies in
the
the floor.
pennies. Yeah, I enjoy their how quiet it is. They're one of the earliest opening in the mornings cafes. So yeah, I think it just depends on what
So
I'm looking
if
for.
I can quickly share, and I know you're going to need to go, a Temple story. I was in Temple Coffee, and it is going to be one of the prizes today when we play our games, and was really pleasantly surprised because it had one of our family names, Hartman, on the bag, and I bought a bag, and then I went to go do research and found out that it actually was a family member that had started a coffee plantation in Panama 123 years before, and I was able to contact them, and they invited me to visit them in
cool.
Panama. So I can truly say coffee's in my blood.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah, of
get the
course.
first
Yeah,
cup.
first sip.
She's right. This is so much better than what I brew. Thank you, Kelsey. It's
Of
really good.
course. Yeah, no worries. I think I want to throw it out. I just have maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. Does anyone have any questions from the audience that we
And if we
could?
do, Ellen's got the microphone.
I will try my best
We
to
have
answer
way,
your
way in the
questions.
back.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the paper filter. I've read. I'm curious
Oh,
about,
you have to turn it on, I think.
No, it's on, it's on.
Oh, it's on?
Cool.
Okay.
I'm curious about the paper filter. I've heard that the paper filter will absorb a lot of the oils that you want in your coffee. I use a metal screen. It seems to work okay. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so that is one of the reasons why I also soak it first, because if you didn't, it would pick up some of those oils. When I travel with my AeroPress, I actually travel with a metal filter just so I don't have to carry paper filters around. So for me, it's either or, but when I do use the paper filter, I will rinse it first so that it's not extracting, or it's not keeping all those oils originally. You're still getting some of the flavor.
Any other questions from the audience?
I had a lot of questions,
Oh, geez,
but I
yeah.
forgot all of them. I didn't write it down. There was a question because we get, it starts with P, and we get it at Safeway. We only get that one. Because he's real particular, but I'll drink it straight. He'll add whatever, milk or something like that. I like mine very strong, as strong as you can get it. I mean, straight from the pot.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a lot of bad acidity if I do that? And just, is that bad for me? I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
for
hel-
the health
I'm very-
benefits?
Yeah, the health benefits of, the question kind of
Yeah.
is there can be too much acid?
Acid?
Or is it,
Bad.
for those of us that like, I mean, I suck lemons. I like acid. I use a lot more vinegar in salad dressings. So is it just a taste thing?
For me, it's just a taste thing. I think for you, since you're doing it straight from the pot and he's probably adding milk, for you it's probably more bitterness that you're tasting versus acid, because
That's probably it.
acid
I go
burns
for-
off.
I go for the gusto and, that sort of thing.
Yeah, your darker roast will have more
Yeah.
bitterness and your lighter roast will be more acidic. So,
Good.
yeah.
Well, I know you need to go. Is there anything you wanted to do to wrap up?
I would just say for folks that are interested in learning more, we have so many resources here in Sacramento. A lot of coffee houses nearby do tastings, both paid and unpaid. So I know Chocolate Fish does tastings, Pachamama, Temple does free tastings every other Friday at their H location. So there's plenty of other resources if you're interested in learning more about coffee to do it here in Sacramento. So.
Good. And I might mention also that Karen, who's in our audience, asked if we were going to always do morning coffee here, and I said yes, but we were going to plan a coffee tour at some point. And so if you send your email to ACCSV, we'll make sure that you get on the list, so you know when we do that. And I don't want to put her on the spot because she's really busy now, but She also is fantastic at foraging. She is wonderful at olive oil, so I am hoping that we'll have other discussions
And
as
olive
well.
oil.
But for now, I want to thank Kelsey. And if we can put up the slide for Kelsey really
Thank
quickly,
you.
just to thank her. So thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Perfect. And we could actually keep that slide up for just a second. So, all right, we're going to try to, can you still get me from here, Sean?
Oh, yeah.
All right, while she cleans. So can you all hear me, or do I need, is my mic working? So one of the things that, that Kelsey showed us before was this pot, which is Turkish coffee. My mother-in-law, whom I never did get to meet, was Armenian, and people used to come to the house that I live in now because she would actually be able to read the coffee, which I thought was wonderful. And the other thing that Kelsey talked about was third place. And that's the role I think that coffee houses have had through history. We didn't talk a lot about the history, but there are coffee houses in England that claim to still be the oldest continuously operating coffee places in the country. Coffee houses served as places where you came for conversation. That's what we want morning coffee to be. We might set this up a little bit differently later, where we do a round table so you can see people, but you talked about politics, the topics of the day. It's where political people would come in to be able to press their case for why they should be elected. And Sacramento's history is interesting. Anyone want to guess when the first coffee house opened in Sacramento? Audience? 1849. So when you came in the Embarcadero and you would come up on the boats, there would be coffee carts because coffee was just a tremendous commodity. You've seen all of the cowboy movies, you know, with the things that would be that way. The quality wasn't that good. But there were also something called coffee saloons. And coffee saloons were interesting because they would have wine, hard to believe, 1850s, 1851, they would have wine and beer as well as coffee. They didn't have hard alcohol. So you had to go to a real saloon to be able to get whiskey. I don't think they put any Kahlua in. I think that came much, much later. And Sacramento had its very first coffee mill. Anybody in the audience? We're going to be doing some trivia. So when Kelsey leaves, Ellen's going to be joining me. We're going to do some contests and game things. But it was called Dingley's Coffee. That was the very first coffee roasters. So you'll see newspaper articles that say who was the first coffee roaster in Sacramento, and the answer is usually 1970 whatever when we got our first ones. The reality is we had roasters all along. There was just a period when we went straight to, what is it, U-Ban and whatever. So Kelsey, can we have Ellen join me? So I'm going to have Ellen come on up. I'm going to sit back down again. And we're going to play some games. One of the things that, and you can do these at home. If you are at home, if you can find, give you a minute to find just a piece of paper and a pencil to do some of this. We're going to do something called Guggenheim's and others. I'll explain kind of the history of that as well. So I'm going to go sit. And we need you to be mic'd. So again, okay, we'll be back soon. And if we can have the next slide up. Anybody ever played a game called Guggenheim? Categories?
No.
Scategories? So I have to tell you that when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. And so I would come home from school and we would play things just using pieces of paper. And one of the ones that my father taught me was Guggenheim. We're going to play this a little bit differently. So those of you that are in the audience, and then I'll introduce Ellen. I'm so sorry, Ellen. All you have to do is to create a grid that is, in this instance, one small one at the top, 5 by 5 grid. And you've got paper. the Guggenheims actually started, how many of you play Wordle? We have a lot of Wordle people. New York Times has always been innovative. 1929, November, right after the crash, the New York Times decided that they had to start doing some games, and they created this game of Guggenheims. It's played a little bit differently in that there is usually a category at the top. Everybody selects a different category, and then there are letters that are random on the side. You get about 5 minutes, literally, to be able to just fill in as many as you can. And now if we can go on so that we can introduce Ellen. We'll go back to that slide in a minute. Great, thank you. So I want to thank Ellen Robinson, who is a good friend, as many people in the audience and at home. I volunteered her.
Here I am.
You're going to find that if you come, even if you're on Zoom, if you come in the audience, you're going to be volunteered pretty quickly. But I met Ellen through Slow Food quite a few years ago. We met and had so much in common. She's a better cook than I am, I have to tell you. But she has, I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself. What intrigued me was that she was a private chef on yachts. And I thought that was fascinating. We're hoping to do some travel, do some cooking classes together, and I've got a couple more cooking classes to tell her about it, where we actually learn something. Ellen, do you want to just say a little something about yourself?
I just grew up on the East Coast in the 50s, and food was terrible, and my mother was a terrible cook. But then as soon as I graduated from the university, I went to San Francisco, and it was impossible not to just embrace food. And so just taking cooking classes and just being around food and always hanging out with great cooks. And then I got into catering, and I hate boats. I don't like deep water, but somehow I ended up being on charter yachts in Alaska, the Mediterranean, Caribbean. And the best part is you get to cook, for me, different meals all the time, which is why I love catering. I can't cook the same thing more than once. And there's also no budget. So I did that for a number of years. Then I became a school teacher, which is kind of almost the same skill set, believe it or not. Just working with a lot of different ingredients, some of them good, some of them bad, and making it all work. So
I'm going to throw this out to the audience. The teacher and me, Joy, who's going to be helping us with the art project, what we used to do with the coffee filter, we would create art with that coffee filter, do all kinds of things. And that's one of the things we're going to show you when we get to the coffee art, is that you're going to be able to use coffee as a medium and other things for those people who like art as well. But we're going to go back to that grid on Guggenheims, just so you can see it once more. We're going to give everybody maybe just 3 or 4 minutes. During the time that you're doing this, we don't want to distract you, because you want to try to fill it out, because the winner in here will get this bag of coffee, the one who gets the most of those spaces filled out. Can we not do the defaults? Yeah, that one yet. And while you guys are doing that, Ellen is going to tell you not one of these categories. I'll tell you what the categories are here. She's going to talk about some of the television shows that featured coffee houses. But what we're doing in this Coffee Guggenheim is you're going to name as many coffee houses or shops, and I want you to keep this regional if you can. So, I mean, I guess you could put in, don't use Starbucks. Do Starbucks, automatically lose. And then brands of coffee. I brought in one of Sacramento's very first real Java, and I'm a collector. I have some of those. Coffee drinks, and what I mean by coffee drinks is there are different kinds of coffee that we drink, not just black coffee. I don't want to give you any hints, but there's also, I used to go to Aldo's restaurant, and they used to make this wonderful coffee thing in front of you in a big kettle. If you can do that. If you can think of any recipes or dishes that use coffee in it. And then this is my favorite one. You're going to be shocked at how often your favorite celebrity became a spokesperson for coffee. So we're going to give you 3 minutes, both here and at home. Fill in as many blanks as you can. And do you think we should keep this up so people can see it?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll keep that up, but,
Because then they can play at home.
and then you can play at home. And we're on TV, so we don't want dead air. So Ellen, would you like to talk about some of the coffee houses? And think about that. That could be an extra category. What were some of the television programs through the ages that have centered a lot of the stories around coffee houses? Ellen?
Well, I'm going to start with the first one. My favorite was Friends, and the coffee house was called Central Perk. And in the first chapter, Rachel, if you remember, she shows up in her wedding dress, and everybody knows that's going to be a place for coffee, and they would all go there and tell their woes or whatever. But I always wanted to have a group of friends, like Friends, and a place like that to hang out with. Next for me was Seinfeld, another great group of crazy people. That was Monk's Cafe. And that was 9 seasons. I was wondering how long Seinfeld was. And lots of good, interesting conversation where Elaine made fun of George and Jerry responded to the annoying comments of his arch nemesis Newman. This was a fictional coffee shop, but also never boring. Frasier was another one. That was Cafe Nervous. There's no surprise that this was in Seattle. A lot of coffee houses in Seattle. And, rainy city, perfect place. And Niles and Frasier would work out their many relationships of a cup of espresso there. Now, I wasn't a big Gilmore Girls TV show, but that was called Luke's Diner.
I watched that very late. I mean, I probably just did it during the pandemic. But I was so attracted to Luke's Diner that I wanted to eat there. And I thought Luke was pretty cool too. Yeah.
And then the last one, this one I don't know at all, Felicity?
Felicity, very short-lived program. But, and I'm going to say this is what I loved about it. Dean and DeLuca was one of the first real gourmet stores in New York that I ever went to, where you could go to one place and get something from every country. They really knew how to brand, so they would have special containers and stuff. So the fact that she worked in the coffee house at Dean and DeLuca was the only reason for watching that show. Good. All right, so you guys done?
You guys are distracting us.
All right, then. Do you know any coffee songs? We should have done this. We're going to give you one more minute. Go on to YouTube. You would be surprised how many coffee songs they are. I was just nervous that we had to pay royalties, or I would have given them to us so that we could play it in the background. Okay, we're going to give you 30 seconds. I wish I could hum one of those songs. And then we're going to ask, we're going to want volunteers. Ellen, do you want to go again in the audience? That actually comes out. And ask one person who's willing to be on camera for just that moment. First of all, who did at least 10 squares? Raise your hand. You didn't fill out at least 10 squares? How many did you get?
11.
Oh, we have some winners.
Any? Really? Was it because you were listening to us that you didn't get them?
Yeah, you were distracted.
At home, if anybody got more than 11, please, I don't know, I think that there's a chat function, Sean will know. Let us know, and you'll be a guest on the next morning coffee if you know. I would have thought you would have gotten all 25, but that's okay, you're not the coffee.
Are we ready to
Is there
go to the
anybody
audience?
willing to read their list? Okay, hold on, stop, we need you to do this.
You gotta hold it.
Coffee
gotta hold it.
houses, Chocolate Fish, Temple, Pachamama, Pete's, Brands, Pete's, Folgers, MJB, Drinks, Mocha, Cappuccino, I should know this. Recipes, chocolate chip cookies, spokespeople, Bill Cosby, definitely. Selleck, Tom Selleck.
Oh, Tom Selleck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's all I have right now.
Okay. So you name a celebrity, by the way, and they probably were a celebrity spokesperson for coffee. John Travolta, Sandra Bullock, believe it or not. You're going to find out more others, but that's how a lot of early actors were able to make money. So we're going to have you come back. So did you share together? You guys are going to share this one thing of coffee? Sure. All right, so Ellen's going to come back, and we are now going to do a true and false quiz instead. So Sean, is there a way, by the way, that people from the audience can tell you how many they got?
If they showed a camera, I can just show it.
Okay.
Should we intro pause now?
All right, we're going to do the true false. And we're going to do every other one. I'll ask one, and then Ellen will. Bees like coffee too. True or false? Audience. True. Absolutely. So bees are very much attracted to the aroma of coffee. And when we were starting to have the beehives, that were starting to be depleted, one of the ways of attracting them to your house was to literally have the aroma of grinding coffee, and they would come.
Okay, true or false? UC Davis offers a major in coffee.
That is true. So realizing that coffee was a big money for the university, and one of the reasons why I was so delighted to have Kelsey here today is that she's taken so many courses. There's a lot of science to both taste, the growing of, sustainability, the politics of coffee. So the UC Davis major isn't just a science course, but it's all the others. And coffee can cure depression. How many no's do we have? Raise your hand if you think no. All right, so we have a lot of no's. Actually, yes. So one of the things that in the old days, one of the places that the Kellogg's, who created that horrible cereal that we eat, but they started realizing the benefits of coffee, and it's the caffeine and the adrenaline that goes from it, but people who are depressed. And the other reason was hanging out like we are with morning coffee. By getting together with people over cups of coffee or food, that was a way of connecting and building communities. So the answer is true. Ellen.
Okay, not sure I understand this one, but you don't have to drink coffee to benefit from it.
True or false?
Smell, just smell.
And that's what we're saying is just the smell. That's what the audience here said. Absolutely. And this is my favorite one. Melita Bentz created the first coffee filter using her son's school book or sock. True or false? Absolutely true. She was just trying to figure out how she was going to be able to make coffee. She couldn't figure out any kind of a filter system. So the first time she used his school book and tore a page out, and then another time she literally couldn't find it and used one of his socks. I am hoping that it was clean. Ellen.
All right, next. Kermit the Frog started out as a spokesperson for a coffee company.
False. How many falses do we have? I'm going to add another question. How many of you think that Kermit the Frog ever was a really nasty character? True or false? Probably true. True. So long before Sesame Street, the Muppets would make their monies doing commercial, and Kermit was actually a curmudgeon in the beginning. I don't know if that's what contributed to his name. And he was a spokesman for Watkins Coffee. And he would say really bad things about people. And one of the things that we're not going to do, but we didn't really talk about the history of Kaffeeklatches, but Kaffeeklatches is an old term, people getting together, and what would usually happen is gossip. And that's what he would do. He would gossip about people. Next one.
All right. Java Jugs, a Seattle coffee stand with baristas clad in bikinis, sold more than coffee.
True. And what do you think they were selling, those of you in the audience? Pot?
Like little, things to put around the coffee.
Things to put around coffee. Anybody else want to guess what the baristas in Seattle were selling? They had 5 stands in central Seattle. Sex. So eventually they got busted. It was not PG. And the coffee stands closed, but they kept the name Java Jug. Somebody did do that. And they owned a place called Twin Peaks before Twin Peaks, and they were able to successfully sue Twin Peaks. Okay, next one.
Coffee became popular because of the Pope's predilection for it.
True. And I'm sorry I'm forgetting the name of the Pope, but it was a Pope in the 15th century that, even though we've been drinking coffee for forever, that thought that, dark coffee was just a great brew and made it something that became very, very popular for both religious services and others. And the last one.
Coffee enemas are a thing.
True.
Has anybody done one?
That was the one that shocked me. Sorry, Sean. And we can go back to us for a second. Sorry for including that one. We're getting a little bit risque. But I was actually shocked when I was trying to find out what are the different ways that people use coffees. I guess they work. And coffee is a natural diuretic, but I guess it helps with the other thing too. So I want to thank you very much. Did anybody notice that there was something about all of those questions? All true. They were all true. Good. Alrighty, so now I'm going to ask Joy G to join me, and she's going to help us do an art project. Yeah. So thank you so much. Some of you need a potty break because of the coffee.
Potty break.
All right.
All right.
So what Joy and I will do instead, because Joy, you need to bring up a setup up here. So one of the things that we plan on doing with morning coffee, and like I said, we're doing this every month. If you have a topic that you really want us to cover, please come on in and do it. While we're doing that, I was going to say we're going to have Tiffany add water to everyone. But Joy and I produced a long time, this was actually compiled and edited by Joy G, the Morning Coffee Anthology. And she has been wanting to do another one for a long time.
We're overdue.
We're way overdue. So we're inviting anyone here or in the audience to go ahead, and if you have a story that you'd like to write, poem, if you want to submit some photographs, the art that you do today. Okay, and I'm going to actually read one while they're doing that things. We had a wonderful poet in town called Janine Stevens, and this is one that she wrote while she was at friends of ours. And Joy is here. I want to thank her again. So you need all of your art supplies.
All of it.
You need all of it.
I got it.
So Kathy Hart cannot be with us today. So Joy G is going to sub. I'm going to actually take us through the process of doing it. But this is a poem that she wrote. And we are doing art. Some of you don't consider yourselves artists. If you decide that you want to write instead or think of a story that you can come on up and share with us, that's fine. But this is one of her poems. I'm hooked on Juan Valdez for my morning shot of coffee. Native Californians grind a local seed that resembles a Boulder coffee. We meet at Rick and Larry's, write, talk, eat, and paint. To the side, a golden turquoise mural with sheiks who enjoy our stronger coffee. Joy explains the technique to construct a three-dimensional snowflake out of copy paper. I cut, staple, create for 2 hours over morning coffee. The nut oil mill in Provence chokes and smolders with fumes. The olive oil mill in Tuscany offers hand cream and cappuccino coffee. The anemic girl from Kentucky ate ground coffee by the spoonful. What is Nescafe exactly? Shiny crystals still in use for instant coffee. Sleepiness can dig into desired longevity. You bring my robe, my Olympic Village mug filled, steaming morning coffee. So for those of you that are at home, feel free if you want to write. Joy is going to need some water, and she's going to need some instant coffee up here to show. I do have to tell you that this is not an X-rated show, but in Morning Coffee there is a story that I wrote called Coffee Cantata. And how I wrote this is, it's an assemblage. There was a local writer by the name of Karen Gordon, and she wrote a book called Red Shoes and Other Tattered Tales. She was married to, I'm blanking on his name, the one that did the Actors Studio, James Lipton. And she wrote all these wonderful books on language. And what I did is I took her entire book and only using words, I like to do what's called found poetry. I wrote a story called Coffee Cantata. And let us just say that it's a very seductive piece, a little erotic. Okay, so we've got some, and we need some instant coffee for Joy. Now, we want everyone to get the instructions. There should be a slide that we're going to put up, Sean, for those people at home. So we're going to talk about how to draw or paint with coffee. If you're at home, the supplies you're going to need is instant coffee. I got this wonderful brewed cup today, but everybody here got instant. Our apologies. You can just put that one down.
Oh.
So we're going to need instant coffee, some water, and we do not want any of the water in the cups for right now. You want your cups to be empty. So if you have water, because you're going to mix this yourself, we have water cups with lids, and then we have, better for round brushes, we have a pencil, and then watercolor paper or cardstock. Whatever you've got at home, you can just use. And next slide. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create 3 different colors of brown. And I need to tell you first how we're going to do it. Let me see if I can actually see that. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that one off so that we can see Joy. And I will read this to you. So we're going to create 3 different colors of brown. We're going to make these colors in separate cups. And how we're going to start is for us to just put a little bit, and if you want to write instead, that's fine. You're going to start by putting a little bit of instant coffee in your cup first. And then you're going to use your brush with water, and just add a little bit of water at a time, because this first one we want is to be dark. So Joy's going to just show you, she's just going to add, just dip, and then just keep on adding water, but you're not going to pour, you're going to use your brush
And just add.
and then just keep on and stir. And in a bind, you can always use another brush just to add a little bit of water to it.
And water, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And you're going to just stir it until it dissolves. And once that's dissolved, that's going to be your darker. Do you still need to just keep on stirring until it dissolves? And so that there's no more crystals in it. Does that seem good enough?
Cold water, I guess.
Yeah, and this should be done with hot water. Yeah. And then in your second cup, you're going to put in some of the coffee grounds. And now you're going to put in more water, some more coffee grounds. And this one, now you want this to be kind of medium. So I'm going to trust, that might be, I put in too much water. So stir that one up. That is probably going to be our lightest one.
Okay, we'll see.
We'll see.
All right.
And then we're going to do a third cup. So depending on if you did it right or wrong, we're trying to do 3 different, am I right, Joy? It's values of color? Values of colors.
Medium, light.
And we're going to show you a slide in the middle of something that you can do, but see if you can hold this one up, Joy. Can we see it?
Down.
Yeah, put it down. Just actually lay it down.
Closer.
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 Closer to you.
Me.
Great. So those are 2 potential projects that you can do. Joy's going to do her third cup, and again, that's too much water.
Too much.
All right, so add your instant coffee. And we want to thank Kathy Hart for supplying these for us. And then we're going to show another sheet in just a second so that you can see. All right, and Joy, nope, Joy should have added her instant coffee first.
Oh.
Instant coffee,
Yes.
but just add it there now and see what you get. And now she's trying to go for a third value. And now when she's done with that one, if we can go to the next slide, we'll show you a potential piece of art that I like better. And I have to tell you that Joy and I used to do art with kids, and I stopped. I used to call myself an artist. I stopped when 3rd graders were doing so much better than me. I never learned how to draw or sketch when I was younger. I'm a 3D artist. Give me some clay, give me fabric, give me collage, give me assemblage. I do pretty well. But otherwise, I start getting really nervous. So do you have 3 different colors? Do you
I could
think
add
that's
more
too? I would
water.
add,
More?
no. I think that you, for that one,
That's light.
that's light. Okay, so
All
Joy
right.
now has 3 different colors. And one of the things that I'm going to ask Joy, do we have a pen for her, pencil? You can do this either way you want to if you're at home. You can lightly draw a design. And I'm going to ask for just a second to go back. You want to just do a light sketch for us? We're going to watch Joy as she does the sketch.
Of
A coffee cup,
a coffee cup.
one of these coffee cups.
Like that? Or
Whatever you want to. So what she's doing first is she's just doing the upper part. And then she's drawn the sides. And you don't have to be a great artist. If you are, we appreciate it. Wonderful, we might give you the chicory at the end. And now what she's just doing is adding a little handle to it. And the nice thing about being able to sketch in first is that you get a sense of the dimension that you're using. Now, I have to tell you that because I don't draw, one of the things that I like to do is to just put graphite on the back of something, just put pencil, and I do a lot of tracing. Okay. So now,
you want coffee in the cup?
you want to put coffee? You want to put anything else in it?
Whatever.
Okay.
Okay. That's
All right.
sketch. Light.
So now,
Now.
what she's going to do is now that she's got her picture, she's going to use her heaviest color first, the one on the far end, and she's going to do anything that is going to be darker, she's going to do with that coffee first.
Dark. The darkest.
Now, I do have to tell you that with this kind of paper, and we kind of brought, whoops.
Whoops.
All right, so just draw in where,
Outline.
whatever you want to do, you're an artist, I'm not. So how are you feeling with the texture?
Pretty good. This is the darkest of the coffee.
So I want to just tell you where I first discovered coffee painting. I took with gusto a class from Jacques Pepin, the French chef, in 1982 at a place called William Glen.
Okay.
And one of the things that I loved about him is that he didn't throw anything away. Everything that he used got used in art. So he saved if there were strawberries or berries, that got turned into inks. Tea, coffee. He would, again, using that extraction method that Kelsey showed us, he would use things, and at the end of the day, he would end up drawing something, and then he would give that art to someone in the audience. So you can see that what Joy's just doing is using the darker color.
I just
She just outlined. And now I'm going to let the artist take over. What is it that you want to do next, Joy?
Should we fill it up with coffee, or?
It's up to you.
I think we should. I don't like empty cups. I like
Okay.
to fill something in.
So which color would you use for the coffee?
Oh boy. Well, I use dark one to outline, but I like my coffee dark.
Okay,
and-
then use the same thing for the coffee
all right.
inside. And art is, we like to say that anyone can do art, and even I could. I could be doing this alongside of Joy. I will also mention that we started something called Morning Coffee Press to be able to do books. I'm an author, and I have been waiting for a morning coffee logo for over 10 years. And I want to thank ACC because the logo that they sent out to everyone makes the most beautiful business card, and with their permission, I'm going to steal it. Okay, good. All right, what are you going to do next?
I don't know. We need a shadow. Do we need a shadow?
It's up to you. You're the artist.
I am the artist. Okay, I guess we better have a shadow.
And we're going to ask people that are in the audience just to kind of show. Yes, we have a question. So one of the things that Kathy has been doing a lot of programs, she's got a watercolor class that she does here every month. So I really suggest that people go ahead and take that. She takes these and then she creates cards and collages out of it. So you can tell that it doesn't take a lot. These brushes are cheap brushes that I bought at the dollar store that were, I don't remember how many, were like maybe 20 in a pack. Round brushes are a little bit easier. So now I would use maybe one of the lighter ones for the coffee cup itself.
True, good. Because the
And we're gonna
coffee cup
find
is
out if
probably
that-
white or something, so I go with the lightest here.
Okay.
Probably wash it.
So how are you doing in the audience? Good.
Let's see, I'm trying to remember from our class. So if that's a shadow, shadow's pretty dark, then the cup is white, then probably pretty light.
And if you want to keep your coffee cup white, that's okay. Maybe you can do letters. And if you're ahead of us, then you can start thinking about what are the edges. And I will again show you these. All that happened on this is using the lightest wash. Kathy went ahead and filled out the outside to create that outside. And I really want to thank Joy for pitch hitting today. And especially Ellen. Thank you so much, Ellen. And we haven't introduced her, but would I embarrass you, Tiffany, to come on up for a second? Would you rather not? Do you mind?
No, it doesn't matter.
So one of the things, this is the ACC Senior Services, and a lot of the programs for older adults. We need you to get into, can you get into camera shot? But I wanted to say one of the things that I love is having younger people who are my friends as well, and this is Tiffany Sandage. She has been working as, am I right? What's your position normally? What do you do?
I'm normally a caregiver / med tech, also concierge for a senior facility.
For senior facilities. So I just want to thank her and her family for being good friends and for, again, being willing to help out today
Of course.
as well.
I'm trying to remember my art teaching, how reflected light bounces back up. But anyway,
Okay,
all right, good enough, I think.
all right.
All right.
So there we have it. Well, she's just going to fill in. Is there anybody from the audience? So I'm going to use you. Is Ellen still here? Ellen, is there anybody in the audience that is done or willing to share what you created?
Come on.
Don't be shy.
They're still painting.
All right, okay, let's give
All
them
right.
time.
If you're still painting, then I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit more of Sacramento's coffee story. And I'm going to ask those of you who are at home what your favorite place to go is. And I have to say that earlier, Kelsey was talking about third place, the importance of having these third places where we connect. What ACC is to me is a great place for a community. Those people who come to events like this, I do a lot. I try to do at least a program a month. Joy and I are here now. We'd be playing Mahjong, I have to say.
That's what they're doing over
That's
there.
what they're doing
Yeah.
next door. We've been coming in and playing, bingo, but it's creating this sense of community. And that's what, to me, coffee houses and coffee shops are. One of my favorites, and I'll ask Joy if she had a favorite, or Ellen, was New Helvetia Roasters and Bakers. They were at 19th and L in what is now Mulvaney's B and L. They were one of the first places in Sacramento, and this was probably in the 80s, that actually not only roasted, it wasn't that their coffee was roasted, but threw in a bakery as well. Up to that, most of the coffee places, you got a good cup of coffee, Coffee Works, Java City. I'll talk about Java City in just a second as well. But they had wonderful art on the walls, fantastic food, but they were gathering places. And if you live in Midtown, you could sit there and the mayor might drop by, or your assembly person, or a senator, people that were activists in the neighborhood. That's really who came by. What started the kind of coffee scene of what we know about the coffee scene now, however, were most of us remember, and I'm blanking on.
If you're talking about Sac State, the coffee house.
Well, we had talked about, Virginia was
Yeah.
here.
Right.
Java City, but Weatherstone's Lee Page had a place for us, Genovino's. That was the first time that we actually had coffee outside. The coffee he actually had to bring in from San Francisco because there wasn't a good roaster here. The Barrios was an art gallery, and the art gallery also served coffee at it as well. But it was Weatherstone's. It's still there at 21st Street,
Yes.
which I love to be able to go back to.
Yes, it's still-
Again, what was fabulous about it was the amount of artists and writers and creative people that you would go to.
Goes hand in hand, coffee and art, I think, or
Right.
places like that. And if you go to almost any coffee shop, and then if you drink and go to bars, I think
Drink and go to bars, too.
art. In fact, we've done artist galleries, and
Right.
I think it goes hand in
Muffins,
hand.
etc.
Yeah.
Also, coffee houses were one of the places
Yeah.
for artists could actually produce work and have that artwork. It was hard to get into an art gallery. Oh,
Many.
you're going to come up and share? Oh, we've got some good stuff, and
Oh,
tell
my.
us who these are from.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yep.
and if you're willing to come on,
Come
camera,
on, come on. Oh
we see
my!
this?
And who did this?
or maybe walk in. I don't know if you can walk in front of the camera.
Yeah, maybe.
Just stay there.
Okay.
I'll zoom in.
All right.
Okay.
And who?
Oh, I'm so glad. And if you can say who your names are.
It's great.
Okay, so just
All
a
right.
second.
So who did this one?
There we go. Oh, I love
Yeah,
these. These are great.
Wonderful.
And thank you for the one that's on my, I
Oh,
can never tell if it's on
look.
my right or my left here. On my right.
Because you're gonna.
Because you got out of the coffee
Oh
cup thing.
my,
You
look
are
at-
right. You can use
look
this
at
for
that.
anything.
The beans
What I like
are-
about it is, yeah, come on
Come
us.
on.
And if you want to introduce yourself,
One. And what is your name?
I think I messed it up a little bit.
It's
oh,
you're
you
good.
there's
You're
you
fine.
do never
Hold it.
make mistakes in art.
Never.
There's never there
Okay.
are unintended consequences.
Yes.
That is wonderful. And what's your name?
Pamela.
Pamela.
Thank
That's
you, Pamela.
beautiful.
That is fantastic.
And your name?
Roberta.
Roberta. Very
Oh,
nice.
Roberta, that is wonderful.
That's great.
Okay, so we need to go up
Oh,
just
higher,
a
little bit
higher.
more, little more. There you go. Oh, wow. Wow.
And we want you to be able to keep the originals, but I will ask if we can take photos before you leave of
Yes.
your art, if you would consider.
If we can.
And we'll talk more about morning coffee.
Morning-
And your name is?
Willa.
Willa.
Thank you.
And this is lava cup.
Lava. Ooh, I love it.
Lava brew, I guess.
So you got fancy. Okay. Oh my goodness.
That is wonderful.
Anybody else?
Anybody else want to share?
This one is from Wanda.
Wanda?
We're going to do a close-up from
Oh
Wanda.
wow, these are great. Oh my.
Okay, so it'll be
So
just a second.
definitely we have coffee drinkers and
Oh,
breakfast.
these are fantastic.
These are great.
And Sean, is there a way that if anybody had their camera on at home, we could show what people at home have done?
Yeah, I think they showed it.
Well, they can, at home they could download, right, or something, or, wow.
So I do have an email that we're using for something else, which is ACC.
Slash,
Oh,
or,
Sean, how would we be
How
able
would
to
we-
use an email that if anybody wanted to send us one here, they could send it to ACC?
care
Send
of
it to classes.
classes.
Classes?
accsv.org.
Classes at accsv.org. So please send it so that we can show it at the next morning
We
coffee.
will collect them.
Good.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go to our next slide.
Oh, oh
All
my.
right. So I liked this one.
And who did this one?
This is actually one that I stole, but I have to tell you, I thought
You borrowed it?
morning coffee in the middle of that might work for my business card. Still searching for a business card if anyone wants to do it. And the next one. Okay, now I'm going to shift gears. Anybody have a comment about being able to do this, how quick it was, how easy, if you enjoyed it? What I like about this is for most of us, it's something you can do when you don't have any art supplies at home. Right, you've got it. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about is
Oh, dear.
that David Suhu, Elaine Korn, the group of us here at ACC are going to be creating an ACC community cookbook. And we are inviting everybody who is affiliated with ACC. If you've got friends, we really want to have the whole kind of panoply of Asian Pacific Islanders included in it. Next slide. So we want you to be able to contribute recipes, photographs, and stories. And what we said is that every family has a treasured recipe, beloved as much for the memories it evokes as is for its taste. Most families have many such recipes handed down through generations, squirreled away on food. And, you know, I can't read my own typing. Food splattered index cards.
Oh, God.
Taped on the inside of well-worn cookbooks, cut from yellowing newspapers or magazine articles, or jotted down from memory after a favorite restaurant meal. It's time to share those recipes with others. ACC Senior Services invites you to submit your stories and recipes. Where did you create this? What memory does it evoke? Did you do this learn it from your grandmother? For inclusion in a community cookbook that celebrates the Asian, American, Pan-Asian, and Pan-Pacific communities. Submission guidelines are at https://www.accsv.org/cookbook.org. We are extending it. We originally had a deadline of February 25th. We are now hoping to extend that till March 25th at least to get as many recipes in as we can and stories. And then, of course, later we're going to want you to purchase a copy of the book. And can I have you go to me again, Sean? All right, so this is another project that Joy and I did some years ago, was whip up a cookbook, collect, organize, and put it all together. So we have, that's one of the books that we produced on how to do that. So we want you to submit your recipes, but I have also done a program on this that's on YouTube. So if you want to go to the ACC's YouTube page and download that, you can learn how to make your own cookbook as well.
And will that be under, where would they find that also?
That is on, if you
Under-
look at YouTube, Sean, how do you get to the YouTube?
Just search up ACC
AC
Senior Services on
Senior
On
Services.
YouTube. And you'll see a lot of different programs on how to do it. So we really want to encourage you to do that. And now we're going to go to the last one. So we really want to thank all of you, especially those in the audience. We hope you come again. So next time, it's called March 1st, same time, 10 a.m. to 11:30. It's called Eat, Drink, Be Literary. And the friend that's going to join us that day is Jennifer Basie Sanders. She has written 50, 60 books. She's also been an editor. I met her years and years ago when she was working at Beers Books, of all places.
Right.
She's just written, her latest book is Churchill, A Drinking Life, Champagne, Cognac, and Cocktails.
Oh, God.
But it's Women's History Month, and I started doing research on all the women writers who might have imbibed in a little bit too much booze. And there were a lot of them. A lot of them.
A lot of good writers.
So, and also some fantastic food writers that are here. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. We, again, we'll talk to her about that. We're going to do some drinks. We'll actually do a drink demonstration as well. Drinking Life, and again, we're going to be able to share stories. So I want to thank Jennifer very much for being willing to join us next month. And I think, would we have one more slide, Sean? Or was that the last one? Did I forget to thank Sean?
Last one.
So-
Last one.
Again, I can't begin to thank the crew here at ACC, the people who helped me or helped us today, Joy G, Ellen Robinson, Tiffany Sandage, and Kelsey Marr. Those of you who came in the audience and were brave enough to come up here and share your art, thank you very much. The other thing I do want to say about morning coffee is we got kind of very coffee and drink oriented and food oriented. That isn't what all the topics are going to be, because when you get to coffee, can I ask Ellen, if you're getting for coffee, what might be a topic you would, what might come up over a cup of coffee?
Oh.
Politics, yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Yeah.
We might, right?
Well,
because that is exactly what ends up coming up. Yeah.
We can discuss travel.
I think that would be wonderful. And so, and one of the things that I also love theater. So I know that Ray Tatter from California Stage
Yes.
and Manuel Pickett, who has this wonderful kind of guerrilla theater
Yeah.
and Celebration Arts. I don't know why. We wanted to invite them in and do a talk or a conversation about why theater matters.
Yeah,
And
and
why art
Sacramento,
matters,
yeah.
why it's so important for building community. If you have topics that you'd like us to talk about, please do it. If you want to be able to join us on a real tour, we do have another program we call a Cook's Tour in Sacramento. And I probably shouldn't mention it here, but we are going to be doing a coffee tour. We're going to be doing a mural tour down the R Street so that people can see all the murals there. And I am working on a book called Dive Bars. So it's going to be Dive Bars of Sacramento. So we're going to do a dive bar tour, and it will be a book later. For now, I think we, 5 minutes short, we're going to say thank you very much for coming, and
Thank
thank you. Again, join us next month.
you.